For more than 100 years, the private car has stood for freedom. It has symbolized independence, mobility, and control over one's own life. But to understand where we're going, we need to step back and look at how this relationship with the car began. At the beginning of the 20th century, the automobile transformed society in ways few technologies ever have. It replaced horses, reshaped cities, and fundamentally changed how people lived and worked. Distances that once felt vast suddenly became manageable. Suburbs expanded, commuting became normal, and entire industries grew around the idea that every household would own at least one car. For decades, driving was deeply personal. It required judgment, experience, and intuition. The driver wasn't just a passenger, they were an active participant in the journey. The car became more than transport. It became identity, status, even emotion. A place of solitude, freedom, and sometimes escape. And for a very long time, that model worked. Then, almost unnoticed, it began to change. The first signs didn't feel revolutionary at all. Cruise control arrived to reduce fatigue on long drives. Anti-lock braking systems added safety. Later came traction control, stability systems, parking sensors, and reversing cameras. Each innovation was sold as help, not replacement. Technology wasn't taking control away, it was simply making driving easier. But something important was happening in the background. Every new system was learning, collecting data, understanding how humans behave on the road. By the late 2000s and early 2010s, a new question began to emerge inside both car manufacturers and technology companies. If software can assist the driver, why can't it replace the driver altogether? One of the earliest and most serious attempts to answer that question came from Waymo, which originated inside Google. Rather than treating autonomy as a feature, Waymo treated it as the entire product. Their vehicles drove millions of miles on public roads, learning not from theory, but from reality. Real traffic, real pedestrians, real chaos. At the same time, China took a very different approach. Companies like Baidu, AutoX, and Motional began deploying autonomous taxis across multiple cities, often at scale. In some places, these vehicles operate around the clock, carrying paying passengers with no human driver present. This wasn't a lab experiment. It was a real transport service. Meanwhile, Tesla followed a path that was both controversial and ambitious. Under the leadership of Elon Musk, Tesla rejected heavy reliance on expensive sensors and instead focused on vision-based systems powered by artificial intelligence. The idea was simple, at least in theory. If humans can drive using eyes and a brain, a sufficiently advanced neural network should be able to do the same. Musk has repeatedly argued that autonomous vehicles could eventually be 10 or even 20 times safer than human drivers. He has also claimed that once autonomy is solved, transport economics will change completely. And this is where the conversation stops being about technology and starts being about society. A private car is one of the least efficient assets most people own. It sits parked for the vast majority of its life. It occupies valuable urban space. It costs money even when it isn't being used. Insurance, maintenance, tax, fuel, repairs. A robotaxi is designed to do the opposite. It's used almost constantly. It serves many people instead of one owner. Routes are optimized. Driving is smoother. Energy use is reduced. Remove the cost of a human driver. Power the vehicle electrically. Let software handle navigation, traffic, and behavior. The result is a dramatic drop in cost per kilometer. Some projections suggest autonomous taxi rides could be cheaper than buses or trams in many cities. At that point, the logic of private car ownership begins to fall apart. Why own something expensive, idle, and increasingly inconvenient when mobility can be summoned instantly? In that world, the car doesn't disappear, but it changes meaning. It becomes a choice, not a requirement. A hobby, rather than a necessity. Consulting firms such as McKinsey and company have suggested that in major cities, the number of privately owned cars could fall significantly over the next decade as shared autonomous transport becomes more common. If that happens, cities themselves will begin to change. Car parks lose their purpose. Multi-story garages become redundant. Large areas of land are freed for housing, green spaces, and public life. Some pilot programs already indicate reductions in congestion during peak hours. But the story isn't that simple. There's a paradox at the heart of autonomous mobility. If robotaxis become extremely cheap and extremely convenient, people may travel more, not less. Vehicles reposition themselves without passengers. Short journeys that would once have been walked are now taken by car. Without careful regulation, efficiency could easily turn into overload. Then there is the human cost. Driving is one of the most common professions in the world. Taxi drivers, delivery drivers, couriers, long-distance drivers. Automation places many of these jobs at risk. Government reports in the United States have already warned that a large proportion of driving-related roles could be affected within the next decade. History suggests new jobs will emerge, but not necessarily for the same people, and not without disruption. And beyond jobs lies power. Autonomous transport generates enormous amounts of data. Where people go, when they travel, how often they move through the city. If a small number of global companies control mobility, they also control that data and the influence that comes with it. Convenience is never neutral. It always comes with trade-offs. And finally, there is a quieter, more personal question. A privately owned car gives unconditional access. A service does not. Subscriptions can change. Prices can rise. Access can be limited or withdrawn. When mobility depends on platforms, independence becomes conditional. Robotaxis may well be safer. They may be cheaper. They may help create cleaner, more livable cities. But they also force us to rethink what freedom really means. So the real question isn't whether robotaxis will succeed. They almost certainly will. The real question is this: will you swap your car keys for an app? Is driving still about freedom, or is it becoming nostalgia? And when transport becomes a service, who ultimately controls your movement? Would you step into a driverless taxi tomorrow? Or would you hold on to your own car for as long as you can? Let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoy exploring how technology is reshaping everyday life, subscribe to the channel. This is Brave New Reality.